Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special Lancaster County Association of Realtors interview. My name is Richard Boas. I serve as chairman of the Communications and Member Engagement Committee. I also serve on the Lancaster County Association of Realtors Board of Directors. Today, I am very happy to be joined by Greg Bardell. Greg is the 2022 LCAR president, here to answer a few questions for us. Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, happy to be here.
Awesome. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself, your real estate background, and exactly what it is your role here as LCAR president is?
Sure. So I received my salesperson license in 1990, so I'm 32 years in. I have pretty much worked everywhere in Pennsylvania, Maryland. Actually, I've done business in Nebraska. Currently I own Realty One Group Unlimited here in Lancaster. I'm also the Realty One Group regional director for the Mid-Atlantic states. So we do franchise development and grow that region. And then we just recently purchased a master franchise for the Caribbean islands to do franchise development down there as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of experience.
A lot of experience. Wow. In terms of LCAR, I have been on the board of directors, I think, for 5 years, and have come up through the ranks of the officerships that were in place, and been very pleased and honored to be the 2022 president of LCAR.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So Greg, you're serving as LCAR president during a pretty major transition period here. We've had 3 major LCAR staff members depart within the past 3 months of each other.
Correct.
We've had the director of communications, executive assistant, and the executive vice president of 47 years all retired. So can you just kind of explain how it was navigating that transition?
Yeah, really the process began last fall. Tom Lefkoe, who was our 2021 president, I thought really did an excellent job sort of steadying the ship. Mm-hmm. We came into the beginning of the year with a game plan for hiring and what that transition should look like. And the transition really wasn't just even so much the staff. It had a lot to do with how the board of directors would operate, how the operations committee is made up of the last 5 past presidents, and they're responsible for personnel and personnel development. The one thing that I really have to tell you is, everybody that was involved in the process, the people who departed, the board, the operations committee, everybody really handled things in a very professional manner. Everybody was very cooperative, and everybody was really committed to a smooth transition. As you know now, we did end up, I think between really what was March and the beginning of May, we were able to fill all 3 of those positions. We outsourced some of the work to help us locate the best candidates for the jobs. And we ended up finding Mike, Olivia, and Laura. And honestly, they've just fit in here so well. They are professional. They've done an outstanding job. I really could not be happier with the people that we have hired and that are here. And I also have to mention, then there's Tracy and Frank, who are here, have been here for decades. And I think they've really managed that transition well as well. They've been a very big help in terms of kind of directing traffic a little bit. They've been involved. They've been part of that transition. Mm-hmm. So everybody just really stepped up in a way that made this the type of transition that I think it should have been. So I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, it seems to be as smooth as a transition as you could possibly ask for. I mean, we have 3 great new additions.
Yes.
Everybody seems to be working together very well, and it just seems like we didn't even skip a beat as far as continuing the same. So
yeah, I when you replace somebody who's been in a position for 47 years, that is a scary proposition when you're looking at it. but we just really kind of took it day at a time. We worked through little problems as they came up, and I think really, again, it was a team effort, and I'm so pleased with, from considering where we were at, I'm going to say last October to where we are today. It's just amazing what has happened and how well it's gone. So
Yeah,
I'm very
absolutely.
pleased.
Yeah. So speaking of transitions, the real estate market itself seems to be kind of going through a transition as well.
Yes.
You have rising inflation, higher interest rates. The stock market's a little unstable.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. You even have talks of recession. So can you just kind of give us your thoughts on the current state of the market and kind of maybe where you see it going, just based on your experience?
So a lot of people don't remember this. 1990 was a recession year, which is when I got started in this business. Yeah, you were 3. Thank you, Richard. I think this is probably my 4th recession in this business, and what I can tell you is they're all a little different. They look different. They have there's differences in terms of the length of time we're in recession and the depth of the recession. But something I think really interesting happened in the last recession, and that was, housing took a really hard hit, probably one of the worst hits in a century. And the fact is, what came out of that was we developed an investor class of buyers and sellers. And I don't think people realize how important they are to getting us out of the situation we were in, and I'm going to say 14, 15 and into early 2016. And I think those are the same people that are going to help us a bit come to a bit of a softer landing. We didn't have the level of real estate investors prior to the recession that we had coming out of the last recession. So I think that's a really important component that a lot of people aren't talking about yet. The other thing that I watch a lot of data, and as of the end of July, we still had less than a month of inventory for sale. Now, it was close to a month, but it was less than a month. And, we have been in probably the most hyper seller market I've witnessed in my career. And I don't know if these numbers are, if there's science behind it, but I can just tell you from my experience, you are in a seller's market up to about 4 to 4.5 months worth of inventory. So if you look at the inventory today, we could probably take on 4 or 5 times the amount of inventory we have, and we're still in a good market. And then you drift into what I think is more of a balanced market, where you have an equal number of buyers and sellers. Maybe houses are sitting 2 months, 3 months, but they're selling. And it's not really till you start getting over 6 months to 7 months of inventory that you start slipping into a buyer's market. Again, we're sitting at still less than a month of inventory. So to me, I look at it, interest rates, it's anybody's guess. They've stabilized some over the last few months, which I think helps us. It seems like there might be a little bit of a bump happening right now in the market, a little more activity than was expected. But I really think over the next 12 to 18 months, I think we end up where maybe we slide into a little bit more of a balanced market. And I don't think that should be anything that should scare anybody. I think that's actually a healthier place to be than where we've been. So that's kind of, if I'm reading the tea leaves, that's what I see happening.
Yeah, and I know, I haven't been in real estate as long as you have, but, I look at the data too, and, no 2 recessions are alike. They're each like a snowflake. And you can't really use the last recession to predict, what the next recession is going to be like. So, you do have to be optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think the fundamentals are different now than what they were in what is now being referred to as the Great Recession. We were, you go back to the 2005, 2006, in those years, and we were just giving money out to people who really had no business borrowing money, and that's really what led to the collapse. That was a big proponent of it. Today, this is more economic than it is what I would consider a housing crisis. The lenders are lending responsibly. Yes, values are up. I think we're going to see values stabilize. But I just think there's a lot of fundamental differences this time. And I'm kind of the opinion that, we may be in this for a little while, but I will be surprised if we see anything like what we saw, what is now effectively 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah. So with all the uncertainty in the market, everybody's reading, about recession, inflation, all that stuff. What advice would you give to agents, in particular newer agents who may be just starting out or not experiencing, something like this for the first time?
So first of all, regardless of what the economy is doing, this is a hard business. It's a tough business. And I think it requires two key things. One, it requires a commitment. It requires a commitment to learning, to being active, to being involved, to showing up, right? And then there's the other big component to commitment, which is sacrifice. And I think a lot of people, especially when they're new to the business, they don't really think about what is it that they're willing to sacrifice. And a perfect example of that is, it's a Thursday night, Saturday night, you're out to dinner, you're out with friends, and that phone rings, or that lead comes through, or there's a call from somebody. And you have to be willing to take that call. And, I know over the years I've had, people work different shifts. There's people who want to talk to you at 2 a.m. There's people who want to talk to you at 7 a.m. And that's just one example of the sacrifices that you have to make. So I think a commitment to the business and to your growth as an individual, and I think really thinking about what sacrifices you're willing to make in order to do this. I can tell you, my first year in the business, I sold one property. Wasn't sure I was going to make it, and but that second year, I learned from the first year. I was committed to what I was doing, and I ended up. I had been working part-time, or I'd been working full-time, doing real estate part-time. And I quit my job and I threw myself into real estate full time. And it was a hard transition. But the fact is, it's what I had to do. That was the sacrifice. It was going to hurt for 2 years until I got it going. So that's the best advice I can give anybody.
Yeah. And it seems like to be really successful in this industry, you almost have to commit to it full time.
Yes.
I mean, I've been in the industry about 5 years now, and I notice a big mistake that a lot of newer agents make is they get their license, they expect the phone to start ringing, and they sell 50 homes a year. And maybe that happens every once in a while, an agent gets lucky, but you really have to put the investment in. It really takes a few years to get, your feet on the ground.
Absolutely. And you have to know, you have to be a good generalist. You have to understand things about finance. You have to understand things about contract law, about sales strategy, negotiation. And it's funny, I remember my first couple years in the business, and it took me about 5 years till I felt like, wow, I really now understand every aspect of this business. And then, to go on in another 27 years beyond that, it's amazing how much I learned. So you can never learn enough about what you do in this business, and that's part of the keys to success.
Yeah, and there's always something to learn too. Real estate is constantly evolving. Things are changing, and you have to keep up with it if you want to be successful.
Yes.
So, whether we're in a recession, whether interest rates are high, or whether it's a buyer's market or seller's market, agents, members of LCAR may be looking to the association for some assistance. What kind of benefits can LCAR provide for its membership, and maybe what can we look forward to in the future?
Yeah, so I find it always interesting that I don't think a lot of people realize what LCAR actually does, and I know I've talked to people in our industry, and they go, "Well, what am I getting for my money? What do we really do?" And just as a couple of examples, one thing that really doesn't get talked about a lot is governmental affairs. We do a lot with our local and state politicians. People don't realize they actually reach out to us and they want our assistance in either legislation that is in front of them, they want to understand it better, they want to understand the issue better. Yesterday, I had lunch with Senator Scott Martin, and we were talking, he was key in helping get the 1031 tax-free exchange legislation through that passed about a month ago. They had reached out to us. Many of our local politicians reached out to us and said, is this a good thing? Should we be focused on this? The city of Lancaster, earlier this year, we helped them draft what their policy and procedure was for their lead-based paint program. Countywide reassessment. It was announced that the county is delaying the reassessment for 2 years. We actually, I authored a letter to them, drafted it, sent it out, and they've made the decision that they're holding on that assessment. So on the governmental side, there's a lot that we do with the politicians, local, state, and even federal. Lloyd Smucker, we see him on a regular basis. From a community standpoint, we do a lot for homelessness. As I think everybody knows by now, we have the TLC event every fall. We have a committee that does that. They're looking at how can they expand the reach, how can we do more in the community. Things like professional standards. We're in the middle right now of a major overhaul of our grievance and hearing process. And that is to create a better experience for the people that are involved in those hearings, to make sure that in fact everything is being done fairly and everybody has the opportunity to state whatever case they have to state. We are in the middle of, mediation has become a really big thing over the last year and a half, contract disputes over earnest money deposits. We are also right now, we're in the middle of making sure that we have mediators that are really qualified and specialized in being able to hear these types of things, right? It's a lot of time and effort on everybody's part. Near future things, we are looking at safety and security measures for agents. We are talking to some companies right now as a member benefit, to improve the security for agents when showing houses, on background checking of their clients or their prospective clients. We are looking at enhanced educational opportunities through the real estate school. We're in the middle right now of looking at modernizing the classrooms with technology. The state legislature, which we again helped kind of push through, was the use of virtual classrooms for real estate professionals, and that just recently passed. So we are looking at an investment in the school to offer a lot more classes that are pertinent to agents. And then probably the last thing is we are in the middle of setting up what right now we're calling a broker owner council. And that is really to provide training and resources to managers and brokers and owners of our association, to help them grow their business if that's what they want to do, manage their business, and make sure that they're educated and informed on what really is required to run a real estate office. So there's a lot going on.
That's fantastic. And I know as someone like myself who's pretty much served on some committee at LCAR here since I've been in the business, I can tell you firsthand that LCAR does provide a lot for its members. Like you said, government in particular. I've been on the Government Affairs Committee. We meet with the politicians, local politicians, every month.
Yes. And
they really use our input to influence, what policies they're looking at instituting. So, yes. It's very, very helpful. And I certainly encourage anybody who's thinking about, volunteering with LCAR to look at that committee or any community outreach for
Absolutely.
sure. So,
absolutely.
So is there anything else you want to discuss with the membership? Any events, updates, anything like that?
I think probably to close on this, I think what I would say is, as a industry association, right, we're a resource. And as a resource, we're a resource to government officials, the media, to investors, and to the home buyers and sellers, and finally our agent members. I think it's important that our membership understand this is your association. this belongs to you. And like anything, what you do with it, what you make of it matters. You may not see it every day, you may not realize it, but we're really, I think, affecting a lot of change in the community and in the industry, both. And I think that's something we should all be very proud of. This association is a beacon for the state of Pennsylvania for a lot of those types of endeavors. So we have a lot of opportunities to be involved. We have events throughout the year. We have committees which are coming up soon that will be appointing committees for 2023. We have board of directors. There's all kinds of ways to get involved and be involved and understand, what actually happens here. So, I say we want to hear your ideas, right? We want to know what the membership thinks, and everybody's involvement, I think, is both welcomed and appreciated. So. It's been a great year so far. It's been very busy. It's been very, very busy for the association. But I'm really proud of everybody. I'm proud of how the board is operating, the committees. There's a lot of excitement, and it's just very, very interesting and cool to be part of. So very, very honored to be in the role I'm in here.
That's fantastic. Well, Greg, I do want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, as well as thank you for your years of service here at LCAR and everything that you're doing this year, and also look forward to seeing what happens in the next half of 2022. So thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.